Digital 410 proudly presents the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast with your hosts Don Abernathy, Jeff Copsetta, and Henry Sledge.
Welcome, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast, your favorite World War II-based podcast. And you know you're doing something right when members of the staff are getting text messages from waiting listeners and viewers saying, yo, it's like almost 9:32. Where are you guys at? So here we are. We're happy to have people. We'd love to know that people are waiting for us. What's the old saying? Leave them wanting more. But before you can leave them wanting more, you got to present something to them to begin with. And so I present to you guys Mr. Jeff Copsetta and Henry Sledge. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Pumped to be here.
Super excited.
Woo!
As always.
As always.
Mondays always suck until we get off work. And then we're here, and we're happy to be here. And we hopefully shine a Klieg light on everybody's Monday to make everything happier and better. You know, Jeff was gone last week, and he felt kind of left out, so we're going to pretend like we didn't do anything. We're going to give away a N block right now for one of the Patreon members, and Jeff is here to enjoy it. We're going to pull a name out here, and the winner of the N block is Mr. Brian Larkin. So, Brian, we're going to reach out to you on Patreon. Thank you so much for supporting the show. The autograph N block will be sent out this week, along with the coffee. Our winner of the coffee has actually gotten back with us. I'm just waiting for a second reply to let me know. But yes, Mr. Alexander Richard Marshalls is getting his coffee mug, his N block, his pack of Warbird coffee, and some stickers and the like. So if you guys want to be entered into those contests automatically, all you have to do is head over to patreon.com or WTSPWWII-EP.com. Sign up for Patreon. It's $1 a month. It goes a long way to support what we do here at the network. And thank you guys so much. Henry, you got like a earthquake going on there, fella?
No, man, I'm writing on the table. I'm taking notes on what we got to do for Memorial Day, so sorry.
No
it's
worries.
Jostling the table.
I was going to say, I've never seen that issue before. Oh, looks like our guest is going to be popping on here shortly. He just sent me a text. So tell you what, Jeff, while I'm doing that in the background, why don't you go ahead and let's get mail call out of the way. And then by the time you get through that second letter, we should have our guest on.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and congratulate Mr. Brian Larkin. I know he is a big-time listener in the show because he's a close cousin of mine. And so, sorry, Brian, you probably don't really care about my autograph, but conveniently, you can flip that N block around and show off Mr. Henry Sledge's N block. All right, so to mail call, yeah, like Don said, we've got two folks that have written in. The first one starts off like this. Good morning, all. I'm working my way through all of the previous podcasts, and you fellas are surely going to cost me some money with all the books you three are recommending. I have a book to suggest and that I have read and recommend. The title is, quote, And I Was There, Pearl Harbor and Midway, Breaking the Secrets by Admiral Edwin Layton. It is about 600 pages long, and it's a good read about the role of the codebreakers in World War II. Published in 1985, you might think it would be a dry read, but Admiral Layton captures and keeps your attention throughout the book. Admiral Layton was the fleet intelligence officer from the beginning at Pearl Harbor and continued to be at Nimitz's side until the end of the war. I highly recommend this book as there's little written on how the Navy broke the Japanese military code. Keep up the outstanding podcast, and I cannot wait until the next one. Sincerely, Donna Eichhoff. Thank you, Donna. Great topic on that book as well. Our second mail call goes like this. Hi, guys. Just finished your podcast with Jared Frederick about his Iwo Jima visit. Iwo Jima is a small island, but it was a large battlefield. You can walk from Kitano Point to Mount Suribachi in one morning. It took 3 Marine divisions 36 days to cover the same ground. My father was a carrier pilot on the USS Langley, CVL-27 in 1944. As a member of Langley's Air Group 32, he flew on the first strike against the island. His plane was badly damaged, and a passenger was killed a few feet behind him. I researched that mission and published an article in the September 2012 issue of World War II History magazine. I've also become very interested in what the island looked like before the bombing campaign turned the surface into a moonscape. I found many pre-battle aerial recon photos of the island, many from the bowels of the National Archives. I've posted many of them in albums 32 through 38 here. He sends us a nice link to go to that. Other World War II related albums precede it. You may find interesting things there. I visited Iwo in 2014, and it was a day I shall never forget. Chris Marks from Amana, Iowa. Thank you, Chris and Donna, for writing in. Interesting recommendation, Henry, on Admiral Layton. I think she's got a point. There's not a whole lot out there, right? I mean, we know, okay, target AF. How do we figure this out? How do we know what AF is or where it is or when? 600 pages sounds like a lot, but there must be so much more out there that we probably don't even know what went into that.
Oh, 100%. 600 pages would be quite a study on it, but no doubt, I'm sure it's worth it. Anything that exposes more. I mean, look, we love World War II in general. Obviously, for me, the Pacific is kind of my heart, but anything that goes deeper, that delves deeper into something like that is always welcome. So love the suggestion.
Yeah, I was kind of immediately thinking about John Parshall's Shattered Sword. Man, yes. I mean, there's so much, the detail, the research that went into that. And one thing I just will always stick with me was the fire suppression systems on the Japanese carriers and the faultiness thereof, I guess I should say, that really was the demise of how those carriers just went up in smoke. And to get on that level, it would be interesting if this book does the same thing. And of course, from the guy who literally was there, as the title suggests, from Admiral Layton himself, to really get into those weeds of breaking that code would be something.
It would. I mean, Midway is such an iconic moment in World War II history, certainly in the Pacific War. We know after that.
And joining us now, returning, I believe, the second time to the show. We had a little latency here. But joining us once again on the show is Mr. Luke Schutzel. Luke, how you doing tonight, sir?
Hey. Doing good. Thank you so much for having me.
You've been staying busy lately, huh?
I try. That's, what do they say? The idle hands or the devil's playground. So try to stay busy.
So, you've been on the show before, but we have a lot of new listeners. The show's come a long way since then. So let's give everybody the quick, for us old folk, the Cliff Notes version of your life. Nowadays, I guess it would be the Wikipedia, of how you got here and what got you into the hobby and what got you into film production. And then we'll get up to speed on your latest project. Yeah,
sure. So, I started, growing up doing film at a very young age. And really kind of, obviously loving movies, loving stories, kind of just, a lot of people are that way. I knew kind of going into high school that was something I kind of wanted to pursue, but I didn't necessarily, not that I didn't, film school wasn't something that I was really interested in doing. So I went to school, I went to college, ended up getting a history degree. I love history. Always have. It's a big passion of mine. And kind of, one of the things that, I still had the love for filmmaking, was doing different projects. And they always kind of say when you're ready to do your first big, film project, whatever it is you want to do, try to always utilize as much production value as you can. And, for me, it was so using my history background and kind of my love of the, kind of World War I, World War II military. I decided to do a World War II type of film, and it's just kind of grown bigger and better ever since. And I've done different genres here and there, all sorts of different things, but military stuff is always something that's near and dear to me, and something I always love to tell veteran stories.
It's interesting. I'm looking at your IMDb and how far back it goes as far as your participation, whether it's through production or acting. And it looks like you got your early start in 2009. And you're kind of right there on the interesting aspect of, you're talking about getting bang for your buck on production. You want to talk about bang for your buck. You went from probably when people are starting to phase over to some of the newer digital equipment to now things being probably a lot more easier to come by. And it's still expensive, but I guess big picture wise, compared to filming things, 10, 11 years ago, it's probably gotten a lot more efficient that way as far as technology goes, and the ability to do a lot of in-house production yourself, right?
Yeah, obviously, some things seem to, even though things change, things always seem to stay the same. I think I was actually just talking to a director buddy of mine named Andrew today, and we were discussing the new iPhone 14 Max,
Mm-hmm.
and we were kind of, he was doing a bunch of shooting, and I've been doing some shooting with it, not anything, just testing it out, kind of having fun with it, and we were both commenting how amazing it was, and how we were like, I think like the specs on the iPhone, aren't necessarily, or for the 14 Max, are still, they're getting better and better. But it's like I think our first feature that we had ever shot was on a similar type of format.
Sure.
And so it's just like, and that was back in 2007, 8. So it's amazing, and that was on like this huge red brick camera.
I was gonna say the price point was a lot different too.
Yeah, different.
And so your latest project, well, how did this idea come to you? The storyline for your latest project.
So yeah, the latest movie that just came out on last Friday, May 19th, called "Come Out Fighting." Yeah, it's something I kind of always knew I wanted to tell. I'm always fascinated by obviously military stuff, but I always try to find stories that haven't, or at least shouldn't say stories that haven't been told, but maybe groups of men and that haven't had their story told.
Sure.
And especially with military. And I knew I always kind of wanted to do a tank movie. I love the 761st. They've kind of always been one of my favorite tank units. Obviously they're more well known within maybe military minded people because they're kind of famous for being part of Patton's Third Army. But it's not necessarily something that a general audience or public would know very much about, or I definitely don't believe there's been any films made about them. So it's something that I've always loved. I started developing, the story, the script, it's probably been almost 4 years ago. So it's been a little bit of a journey.
And just for those listening, the storyline is set in World War II. In this military adventure thriller, a small and specialized squad of the U.S. Army soldiers are sent to an unofficial rescue mission behind enemy lines to locate the missing commanding officer. The squad, upon battling their way through the German defensive, encounter more than they bargained for when they located downed U.S. Army fighter pilot. With the help of their friends at the 761st Tank Battalion helm, the squad must fend their way to survive and make it back in one piece to the American lines. And so definitely looking forward to watching that one. I've seen quite a few of your films.
Oh, thank you.
I think one of the ones that was in heavy rotation when it first came out was War Pigs. And you had quite a lineup on that one as well, right?
Yeah. War Pigs was kind of one of my first bigger budget, at least for me, feature films, and definitely the first one I really got to have bigger name talent. We had Mickey Rourke, Dolph Lundgren, and Luke Goss. So it was a lot of, kind of my first time, getting to work with some of those heavy hitters. And, Dolph, I don't know, some people maybe have heard the news. He'd been battling cancer for the last several years. I kind of, I've gotten to do a couple projects with Dolph. So I knew he was, struggling with some health issues. Not necessarily knowing all the details, but Dolph, I just wanted to give him a shout out. Like he, with War Pigs so long ago, he agreed to do it, and he kind of was the first name cast to kind of say yes, and he set the whole ball in motion to get other people, get the financing involved,
Sure.
to get other people to say yes. So I mean, what an amazing, outstanding man. He's just done so much for me and my career. So he's just a fantastic guy. And for those that maybe don't know, he is so smart. Like
Yes.
he's a genius.
Yeah,
like talking to him is like talking to like a science, like not a mad scientist, but like a MIT scientist. Like he's a genius.
I think he's certified Mensa. I literally think he is a card-carrying Mensa member. He has come back, and he is part of this project as well. It looks like he's playing Major Chase Anderson. So obviously you guys get along well enough that he's willing to come back and work on another project with you.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun together. And what's fun about Dolph is, obviously he's a big action star. And in this one, he, obviously we utilize him a little bit differently. But we love developing characters, and so it's been a lot of fun getting to work with Dolph Lundgren to kind of like really hone in a character that he wants to play, and then just kind of adapt him into a film that I'm doing.
The the major players in this, how excited were they that you're doing a movie on an African-American based tanker crew, and they're finally kind of getting their light shined on them as well?
Well, I think so like the main cast, I want to say like, when, we Kellen Lutz, like, so some of the name cast in this movie are Kellen Lutz, who's kind of known for his playing a vampire in Twilight. He also was Hercules in a feature film. And obviously he's done lots of other bigger things as well. We also have Dolph, who we'd mentioned, then Michael Jai White, who's, for me, he is Spawn. So that was an incredible kind of, as a kid growing up watching Spawn. Like, that's just, so it's cool to get to meet him and work with him. My lead, who is Hiram A. Murray, he's a fantastic actor. Maybe not as big of a known name yet as some of the others, but he's definitely an up-and-comer. He just got off a stint on last summer's Terminal List with Chris Pratt, so he's fantastic. And then lastly, we had Tyrese Gibson, who's kind of known for all the Fast and the Furious, and obviously other things. But that was kind of definitely an amazing group of guys. And I think like one of the things, for a lot of them too, when they read the script and story, and I mean this, like, I don't know if they necessarily ever believed that they'd get a chance to be in a military type of film. And like, this really struck home to them, and really, they grasped it and said like, hey, this is a story we not only do we want to tell, we enjoy this, but like, we need to tell, like, we need to do this for these guys. So that was kind of fun to really, I really felt like I got above and beyond their efforts in order to bring it to life.
When writing the screenplay and the script for this, how much time did you spend on like the research and development, if you will, go into the archives and find as much information as you can on these particular, tank battalions, and just making sure, because obviously you've been around the living history world, you know historians and how they, they pick everything apart. So how much time and effort do you put into the research aspect of your storylines before you even start working on the scripts?
So I think like one of the first things that I like to do, especially with I do have, mine are what people would call, lower budget type of films. So there are some limitations that before I even start writing, I just know I'm going to, butt heads against. It's just the way that it is.
Sure.
So I definitely have that in mind when I start writing. So what I like to do is kind of plot down a basic script structure, story structure, and maybe do a script, something really rough. And then once I kind of hone that in just a little bit, I really like dive into, okay, what can I, keeping in mind the budget, like, okay, so let's go really research, let's get really knowledgeable on the areas that I know are, everything's important in the script, but like areas where like, okay, I really need to know this really, really well. So I kind of really dive into that. And that usually takes me, a whole year to kind of develop, develop, research, and then, trying to compound that all with, if I know, I'm obviously going to be shooting it with a tight budget, not as many days. So just kind of like coordinating, okay, like what can I get away with? What can I do? What can I already put in the story in the script that I know is going to help me if I go to film this? So that, it's a long process. But it always kind of pays off. I think people are always amazed when, like we do these things, and like on this film, we shot it in 17 days. So, I mean, it's an incredible, with like the names, the actors, the weather, you just really got a lot on your plate, and really to be prepared beforehand as well as possible, especially steeped in the historical, knowledge of that is so important.
Jeff, do you remember how many days you guys spent on Walking Point? Because that was a short film as well. I mean, that was a shorter film, but was that a pretty quick 10 days?
10 days, yeah.
Now, Henry's been working on a book, and we've had other authors on here. One of the things they talk about when it comes to getting a book published is the publishers want an X amount of pages. They don't want more. They don't want less. They have a general idea how much they can get into a book where people be interested in reading it. obviously costs and all that. When you're writing a screenplay, you've done enough movies now. Do you have like kind of a page cap or word cap? Because as you were just saying, when you're working with a finite budget, the difference between writing a book, all your cost goes into ink, pages, and postage, whereas movies, it goes into lighting, film, actors, craft services, time on site, everything. So do you kind of like have a rough outline? Okay, I know I want to go for X many hours, so I need to stick to this many pages. Do you have a formula worked out now?
Yeah, so I and it's fun. It's fun. The storyteller in me would just love to just write and kind of like produce this big 120, 130 page script, and say like, all right, let's make this. But I've tried that before, and it's really freaking hard when you're on a tight schedule. So yes, over the years I have kind of developed some tricks to help me out. I know, so like one of the rules of thumb, so listen up, anyone that's wanting to do feature films, kind of the cutoff for both domestic and international buyers or people that, distributors, they want to see a feature like with actual footage of at about 82 to 83 minutes. That's like their cutoff. If you have anything less than that, not including the credits. So if anything less than like 82 minutes, they won't play it. It's too short. So so knowing that, you can usually kind of equate about 1 minute of screen time to about 1 page or so. So my scripts usually come in at about 85 to 90 pages long. And I know that gets me about, if I film all of it properly, gets me about 85 to 90 minutes of footage for a finished movie, and then I can edit it down and tighten things up. I have a little bit of wiggle room in case I need to speed it up, and cut some stuff out. So that kind of usually trims me down to about 82. Now, you definitely could you could definitely shoot more than 90 pages, but that obviously will take you more days, which equals more time and equals more money. So that kind of is just a good rule of thumb.
I've heard by listening to other people, Adam Carolla, for example, he's shot a few films, and he says one of the things that took him a while to realize is you want to shoot a lot of over-the-shoulder B-roll. He's like, if you shoot a lot of over-the-shoulder B-roll, and then during editing you realize, oh shit, we didn't catch this line. Well, we'll just put in the over-the-shoulder B-roll, have them come in, record the line in post, and you just won't see what they're saying to help fill in some of those gaps. Never underestimate the power of B-roll, I guess, is the key when you're getting into making movies.
Yeah, I mean, they call it coverage.
Mm-hmm.
I always recommend, get as much coverage as possible because your editor will love you. I mean, you just never know. Like sometimes maybe something's not working or the camera angle's funny and they need to cut away to something. And if you have nothing to cut away to, they're going to be in a tight spot.
Where was the location shoot for this movie?
So we ended up shooting like 95% of it in a place called Rockford, Illinois.
Okay.
It was it was a really location that I had studied well. They do a big reenactment there every year. But it was a good central location for a lot of the vehicles that we used. A lot of the vehicles that we could get our hands on were within an hour, 2 or 3 to get to the site. So that was kind of not having to have the truck everything across the country was very beneficial and allowed us to get more stuff.
And I assume you probably reach out to local reenactors to have some background folk walking around, and because obviously it's easier to deal with them because they come with their own wardrobe.
Yeah, no, we definitely had a lot of great reenactors in this. I definitely have done these films enough where I've acquired a very vast, like I think I've got I always say like 50 or 60 sets of, uniforms, American, just fully uniform. So I've learned to always be prepared to, and then just bring in not random extras. They're all great, but have extras call. So I always know I have a good amount of bodies, and we have the costumes to put them in.
If people, you said Come Out Fighting came out on Friday. Where can people find it right now?
Yeah, so right now, let's see. It's playing in theaters in several different states. I know it's on demand, so usually that means you can rent it or buy it. I think Redbox.com. I think iTunes. I think Amazon. This movie is Redbox actually picked it up as a Redbox exclusive. So I
Nice.
know, like, if you go to redbox.com, you definitely can get all different versions of being able to get your hands on it. But yeah, I'm pretty sure iTunes, Amazon. I'm sure there's others. Vudu, um, Google stuff. They have so many different ones now these days. I'm not that I'm losing track, but it's been amazing to see all these different options.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say options is definitely a good thing because I mean, back in the day, not sound old, but back in the day, you want to put out independent films. It's like your options to get signed on to Miramax or a few other ones, and good luck. And then with the streaming services, there's so many of them out there looking for good content that
Yeah.
it's probably easier now than opposed maybe 15, 20 years ago to get material out.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely to get it out there with the internet and just the different distributors. It's definitely a lot easier than it has been in the past.
Now it looks like you put out a film around 2021 called The Last Son. Was that film impacted by COVID as far as the film festivals go and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, we actually, we were one of the first movies for The Last Son to shoot in, I would call COVID, with dealing with all the protocols and, just the virus itself. What kind of helped, so for those that might not know, The Last Son is a Western starring Sam Worthington. We shot it in Montana, so it's kind of where we had shot was on this old west town, this old ranch, and we kind of like secluded ourselves. We lived on the ranch, we shot on the ranch, we shot around on the ranch, so that way we could kind of limit our exposure to different things. It was a very amazing experience, and Montana is just such a gorgeous place that it really felt like, I mean, it most definitely felt like we were on living in Western days. Just in terms of, I mean, we had like, I think our first day of filming, it was fall. So we shot this in October, and it was like mid-October, and it was, 76, gorgeous, gorgeous day. And then like literally within 2 days, like on the weekend, snowstorm comes up on the mountain, dumps like a foot of snow on all of us. So, so I was like, okay, well, I guess this movie takes place in the winter. So,
well, you don't have to worry about bringing in fake snow at that point.
no, most definitely. There was definitely no fake snow there.
Jeff, Henry, you have any questions for Luke?
Not so far.
I'm foaming at the mouth. Probably 1,000 questions as somebody who's working in independent films and from the advising, costume design, and acting experience. So I got a lot of stuff, but
fire them away, man. I love talking that stuff.
Well, I mean, I don't want to get too deep into what I've got going on, but I would like to ask. I mean, in your opinion, and we've talked about this a lot on the show and from our listeners. Do you think being on that side of the camera and the work that you do, which, by the way, you definitely get like the award for the background of the guy you can tell is always working. Yeah, we have people on the show with nice bookcases and everything's great. And this dude, you can tell this dude's busy.
Yeah, Amazon packages.
Yeah, but no, it's a fear I think that Don and Henry and I share, and probably a lot of our listeners is. Do you see World War II, a demand for World War II films dropping off only because of it's been done, then it was redone, and then it's been done for the first time, and then for whatever reason it flopped? What's your take on that? Because I know film is such an important media, especially for younger generations coming up, that World War II is going to be just as ancient history as Thermopylae, right? It doesn't take long. It just gets lost in the annals of time, and nobody can really tell how long ago it was, right?
Yeah.
I have students. I'm a high school teacher. I have students ask me if I was in Vietnam. I'm like, guys, like that's what I'm saying. But like, there's that. I don't know. It's before I was born, so it could be at any time. So do you see World War II going there, or do you think there's enough? And I know there's people like you working hard to keep it alive. Our living historians, actors, researchers, authors, podcasters. Do you see it? Do you see it dwindling?
So I think that's a great question. And obviously this is my personal opinion, but I do at least get to see a little bit more on the back end. I mean, of like how, there's obviously the artistic success that you want to achieve with each film that you're trying to make. And that has, when you're doing working on budgets, I mean, that has not that it has a limit, but like there's only so much you can do with the time, money and the resources that you're allowed to have. But so on the flip side, there's also the distribution side of things. And I've gotten to see that very well, and I know that really well. And it is the most, especially with movies, is the most confusing thing for anyone that does movies. They don't understand how World War II movies do so well, and because they do so well, and why they do so well at any budget level, because there's a huge demand and market, and there's still so much interest in it. And I think like what maybe, while it might appear, especially some of like the bigger budget stuff, why it maybe seems like, okay, well, these weren't as financially success as they should be. It is not because that the audience is not there watching them. I think like the distribution model that is the current structure of films is not yet up to par, or the ability to be able to compensate those bigger budget features, if that makes sense. So something like, I'll give you an example, like Midway, right?
Fantastic movie.
And so, excuse me, I'm thinking, I think it had like a budget of, I want to say at least $40 million, but it could have been a lot more. And I don't know. I mean, I can't speak in general. I'm just speaking in generals, but I don't think it necessarily made its money back. But that's not because of the lack of audience to go see it. It's because it doesn't have the correct distribution model that it can really flourish and make money. So if that kind of like sums up, like the audience is there and the demand to see these movies is there. It's just the distribution model in order to make some of the bigger budget stuff is really, really hard to do. And it's like that for a lot of movies, regardless. Like, unless you have like this big super blockbuster, movie, Marvel movie, let's just say, with like, hundreds of millions of dollars, or you have Brad Pitt in your project movie, like Fury would have, It's really hard to get the audience to spend money. Everyone kind of waits for it to get to Netflix, or they wait for it to stream free with ads.
Sure.
And like, so you get like, huge audience, lots of people will be watching it, but the money that kind of comes back from those models is not very much.
Yeah. To your point, Midway grossed $56.8 million in the United States and Canada, $68.5 million in other countries, for a worldwide total of $125.4 million. But it had a $100 million budget, so it grossed $25.4 million over its budget.
Right, and so usually the rule of thumb with those big movies is to say like they also probably spent $50 million in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So it probably broke even in terms of like the distribution model, and that's hard. Like it's hard to make money in that, even with that much money putting out there.
Sure.
The distribution flow is just not as conducive as it used to be.
It's funny you brought that up.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, go ahead now.
No, go ahead. I can wait.
I was going to say, it's funny you use that as an example, because I had a few conversations on the phone with Harlan Glenn, who was the military advisor for the new Midway film. And he kind of said something a lot like what you were talking about. I don't remember the specifics, but I remember there was that, well, you have to look at it from a different perspective. And I think you really hit the nail on the head there. And I remember telling him, it just seemed like everybody kept saying the new Midway film as if it was the remake of the old one from whatever was 76 or whatever, that spent, I think, all of their budget on the actors and left a lot to be desired in other aspects. So I always kind of thought that was for some of the older generation that, it's just like when the Lone Ranger came out, you've got a bunch of old guys that grew up in the 40s and 50s watching these old, Western series, because that's all that was on TV, and they go see Johnny Depp and they're like, no. And I thought that was kind of the same thing with Midway. It was never meant to be, it's the new Midway, it's the remade Midway, it's Midway 2.0. No. If they would have really sat back, because I really enjoyed the film. I really did. I saw it multiple times.
I love
in
Midway.
theaters.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, I loved the chronology to kind of bring you up to speed.
Well, that's what I was going to say, not to cut Jeff off, but to his point, and Henry and I and Jeff talked about this before. I almost think they gave it the wrong damn name. Midway is like the crescendo of the movie. There's so much coverage of the Pacific and the things that went on leading up to that they could have easily given a different name and possibly gotten some more eyes on it, because I think it was
Pacific
packaged wrong.
Payback. I thought Pacific Payback would have been good. Striking Back, I thought would have been some good names, because it's you get hit at Pearl, and then it shows their kind of, the floundering, attack on the Marshalls in February, like just kind of getting our feet wet. Pilots really getting their wings, and but no, that's a really interesting thought, and I think that was around that same time where, it's just not go to the movies on Friday night anymore. Like you said, it's Netflix, it's all the Amazon Prime stuff and distribution, I guess now, because we're all anxiously awaiting Masters of the Air or the Mighty Eighth or whatever it's going to be, with, I think, a $500 million budget or something. Is Apple, is that the best way? And I hope so. For that thing to come out. So,
well, and the good
really
news too, like Luke said, not only, so first it goes to the main streaming services, your Netflix, whatever, and then as age goes by, it works its way down through the freebies and the Plutos, where it's still making money off of the commercial ads during that. So there is a avenue. Two things. One, Jeff, I think maybe to answer your question, about 3 years ago, there was a video going around on TikTok, and I've seen picture memes of it, and it simply states this: when men hit their late 30s, they get interested in one of two things: smoking meat or World War II. So we always have the up and coming 35 to 40-year-olds that are going to get interested in World War II, and so we have that to look forward to. But kind of back to the big budget thing, as a small film producer like yourself, that's one of the things you got to battle against, is all these big mega movie companies. They're so worried about loss of revenue because people aren't going to the theaters. DVD sales are long gone. It's like now they're only remaking pre-existing intellectual properties. When's the last time you've seen an original storyline big budget film come out?
Like specifically around like World War II.
Anything. I mean, everything's is like, oh, we're gonna do a Rock'em Sock'em Robots. It has nothing to do with the game, but it's an intellectual property that we know will sell. It's like every big mainstream movie is based off of some sort of intellectual property that's already been out there, and they're just remaking it because they know it'll sell, opposed to coming out with new original scripts.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really, if you want my opinion, so
sure,
I always like the marketing, and a lot of, obviously when you make a movie, you got to start figuring out like who your audience is, like who are we trying to sell this to? And I feel like the industry in the whole, but especially like with military stuff, they've completely forgotten how to market to their own audience.
Yeah.
Like like I know we were talking about like, okay, what would it take to get maybe Midway to be freaking, have done maybe better in like a theatrical setting? Well, it takes boots on the ground. You got to make this thing an event. You got to get people into the seats. You got to you got to do giveaways. You got to get veterans there. You got to spread this out over every major city and do like you got to get creative in how you really market and promote these military films, or any films probably in general. They just they take their marketing budget and they put it on Google, and they hope that a whole, like, as I'm sure anyone that's had Facebook or Instagram, you see ads. I mean, that's where they spend their money. They stop it right there. They don't do anything else. And it's just like, okay, well, how much more money we have, we can put more ads out for people to see. Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. They're throwing a net out to the most general anything that they can, and they really don't go or engage, or they know who their exact audience is that they're trying to get.
Sure. And the other thing, you're talking about script length, you don't want to be too short, but the other window you fall into, and let's admit it, we all have short attention spans. The days of the slow burn. Let's build up the character development. Let's build up the storyline.
Sure.
Could you imagine trying to release The Longest Day now, even with modern technology? It's like if things aren't blowing up and people aren't shooting each other within the first minute and a half of the movie, a lot of people aren't interested. It's like the slow burn, the character development. I don't know. Could you imagine Reservoir Dogs being put out today with that slow burn, that long beginning? I don't know. It seems at least, you go see some of these movies, as soon as the credits roll and something's blowing up or something's some sort of action's going on.
That is true. I do think, though, it is and it will start shifting back to more longer story-driven drama, because we're losing that. I mean, you can only be, everyone's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. It does seem like that, and it's just explosion, explosion, explosion. I think it will swing where people will have, will want to see how this, how a longer story plays out. I do anticipate that being something that will come back.
That's really interesting, Luke, that you see that, because, and I'm sure Don and Jeff can, because we have young kids. I mean, I watch my 14-year-old and the way he consumes media. I have a hard time getting him to sit down and watch a 2-hour World War II movie. I don't think I could even do it. I mean, he's watched a lot of the Pacific because that's his grandfather.
Sure.
But that's different, So it's encouraging, I guess, in a way that you see it swinging back the other way, because I'm curious what could drive that. I hope it does. I hope you're right.
Yeah. What do I think will drive that?
Yeah. What do you think will be the impetus to make it swing back, where people are like, wait a minute, we need more intellectual character development. Let's get to the root of this. What are we really talking about?
I think you just, for me, you just answered the question. We've forgotten the root of the story and of the characters.
Okay.
And when you they've taken out that human ability to connect with other humans on the screen. They're moving so fast, and even with my film, like I had to cut out, my distributor had me cut out about 7-8 minutes of all of the dialogue, human emotion. I mean, I like to think that I still got to have quite a bit in there, but anything that they thought was slow, they wanted gone. And they didn't allow any of the character moments to I call it breathing. I call it breathe.
Sure.
When I'm working with my actors, I call it, okay, let's let the scene breathe. Let's let it breathe. And to me, those are the moments that people actually care about. I mean, screw all the other stuff. But then in the edit, they'll cut it down so where it's okay, you can kind of tell okay, it's there, but it's really fast. Well, I still believe, because I've seen it. If you let it breathe, if you engage the story, you engage the audience. If they're really on this journey with this character, they'll get involved. But I totally understand when you say the 14-year-olds, that it might take a little bit more time for them to really want to see that nowadays. I do think they'll get there. I mean, my 2.5-year-old is freaking. I'm amazed that he knows how to work a tablet.
Yeah,
I mean, it's incredible.
It's like they're native to it. The digital world, they're native to it. I mean,
and because I think it'll be something that, as the younger generation, they're so used to everything being so fast. When they actually find that a story or a character that they're just oh my goodness, oh well, I see, my boys, they are that way. They're 2, 4, 5, and 6, but they when I would edit and I would sit on my lap and we'd watch the movie together. Or just chunks, scenes and stuff. They would sit there and watch and watch and watch, and they would, and that's not necessarily equivalent, but I do think it will get to a point where they're hey, they just want to see characters. People will want to see characters again.
That's really interesting.
Well, I was just thinking. Let me say this real quick. I was just thinking after I asked the question, what we're doing is the perfect proof. I worked in radio for 6 years. My radio station I worked at did multiple format changes. It was all rock with the afternoon talk show. Then it was all talk. And the company would hire all these music consultants to come in and tell you what people want. Well, what do you think a music consultant is going to tell you people want? Music. They say there's no room for talk radio. There's no room for talk radio. Meanwhile, there's 300 million podcasts out there. People tune into our show every week, and all we do is ramble on for 2.5 hours with no action, no screen, no graphics or anything. So maybe what we're doing is an indication that at least people in their 30s and 40s want dialogue, because that's all podcasts are, is dialogue. Even in the video format, you're just watching 4 dudes sitting in a room talking. So maybe there's a little proof there that the popularity of the talking format that is podcast will bring back people's interest. Or I think the interest is there. We just kind of like the people in radio, the people who run the movie companies are behind the times. They don't realize that there's a thirst for dialogue out there.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, a thirst for dialogue, but just a thirst to see to see an actor experience a human emotion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of the most amazing things that you can watch an actor do is I always say it's like it's right here, right here, and you can watch them experience their whole life or a whole emotion by just seeing how their face is reacting. But that takes time. Like that will take to see an actor display what they're thinking in their face, and so that the audience can really feel what they're feeling. I mean, that's going to take 5 seconds, 6, 7, 10 seconds of just sitting with them. And studios and distributors, they have a hard time. Like they're moving so fast, they're like, oh, that's way too slow. That needs to be cut out. But like really, humans will connect with that. They'll be able to follow it if the actor's doing their job and doing a really good job. Of course, if it's not, it's different.
Perfect example is that Philip Seymour Hoffman. What more do you need to say? You watch that guy and you verbally watch me God damn, that guy can act.
He's incredible. And it's just when you go to see it, like Midway would have maybe it was, I mean, I love it for its action-packed stuff, so I love that. Like that was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And it had quite a bit of moments as well. But they probably could have had, I probably could have used a little bit more character development out of all those guys.
Yeah.
But that would have probably dragged the movie on super long. And I'm sure I'm sure they have it too. I'm sure they shot it. I'm sure they've got these big, long, awesome, acting heavy scenes, and they snip down to and that's what was shown. So I feel like they're going to get back to allowing those scenes to play out because people will be like, oh, this is fascinating. Let's see what he does here.
Jeff, I stepped on you. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that you may or may not remember when you came out to Texas and we, doing the Living History program. I used to get a lot of comments about, oh man, that was great. It was great. But there was one lull, in the shooting after you guys hit the beach, and like, yes, I do that on
reloading?
purpose. Like we hit the beach and it's a Living History event in front of a live audience, Luke. So, there's 400 people that are watching everybody hit the beach, and there's the Army and the Marines, and everything's crazy, and they're looking right at the Japanese and all these fighting positions and the hills and everything. And yeah, we hit the beach, and then you got to start hearing the audibles. You got to start hearing the cries for corpsmen. The tank would come off from, the audience's right and start, kind of softening up so we could advance. We're not shooting and scooting the whole time. Let's let that die down. Let's let them kind of, like you said, let's take a breath. And oh my gosh, there's all these guys laying on the beach, and there's half of these guys that are still alive pushing, up in, further, in the advance. And I would always have to answer for that. And, I just keep telling I just trust the guy that's actually been in combat. Like I can tell you firsthand or talk to a police officer that's been in a shooting situation. It's not like Lethal Weapon where they have unlimited ammunition in a 9mm. No. It's you're scared to death. You're not even sure if you should fire. Then you fire, and somebody's firing, and then you're stuck. What was that? Where? Okay, it's really hard to, if you really want to portray that accurately, it's really hard to not just have a video game
right.
to really try to tell that story. And like you said, the most powerful scenes are some of those reflective, that quiet, that lull, and then that makes that next shot fired, you startle them. Because after a while, they get numb to it. Everything's blowing up, and like, oh, this is boring. Everything's blowing up. People are flying everywhere. Right. That's boring. So hold back, and so then the next time it's just as powerful, so you don't wear these folks out. So yeah, absolutely, it's really interesting. Like I said, man, I'm just fun with the mouth. I could talk to you all night about some of this stuff because I am so passionate about it, and being able to work in the independent film industry in the very minute way that I have, but hoping to build on that is it's interesting because like I said, it's if Don's algorithm is correct, the 14-year-olds that we're trying to reach now, I don't want to wait until they're 35 deciding if they're going to smoke meat or talk about World War II. I mean, seriously, like that's too late. That's 20 years from now. And World War II will be like, oh, was that before the Civil War?
Yeah, but there's also people turning 30 every week. So we still,
it's just too important. Exactly.
Yeah.
So we got to keep it going.
And to Jeff's point,
I appreciate what you do, Luke. Appreciate what you do.
Man. I appreciate that. I think probably maybe like the last thing I definitely would love to say with the story is I think, and I've gotten to see this over the number of years, just of several films that I do, and it's not necessarily has to do with like critics, but just maybe older viewers, not in a negative way, but I think they forget that sometimes. It's and especially what I try to do with my films is, hey, I'm trying to tell a story for those 14-year-olds, for those younger generations a little bit. They haven't necessarily seen, they don't know World War II like we all know World War II. They don't necessarily know things like we do. And, you have to allow a little bit of, hey, there's a little bit of, especially with like, with the World War II movies, you got to educate your younger audience just a little bit in some of the things. You have to allow them to get up to speed and also see things that are very cool. Because, like, I had someone, not to go over reviewers, but there was one reviewer that said like I had a tendency to write to platitudes, and for those, like, a platitude is something like it is what it is, or we keep moving on, and
it's a snappy saying.
Yeah. And that totally makes sense. And so like when you're writing like a really adult movie, like really deep dialogue, like, like for adults to really kind of like, oh yeah, I'm loving this. Like you want to really make things fresh and do things differently. But when you're also trying to kind of include a younger audience, I mean, they need to hear stuff like that. Hey, don't give up, keep moving on, pick yourself back up. Like these are things they need to hear. So they go, oh, that's what that means. Like they've never heard it before. So, so just something I wanted to at least bring, it is important to, help and educate some of that younger audience, such as your son, because he might not have heard some of these things, and that might help him click in his life about, hey, being responsible. It's going to be, life is hard. I mean, there's a reason why that's true.
I heard Midway criticized for some of the same stuff. Let's go out there and give them help. Well, I mean, the truth be told, like you just said, I mean, back in the 1940s, guys kind of talked that way, and we should embrace that. There's nothing wrong with it.
There's nothing wrong with that, and that's how they like to talk, and it's straight and simple and to the point, and it rallies the men, and I mean, you don't have to give this big deep dialogue discussion per se in a situation like that. Like it's simple to the point and everyone understands what you're trying to say. So yeah, Midway got that too a lot. And I just find that it's just it's not a fair criticism, because you're not writing the next, AMC TV drama series, which those are awesome, by the way. All those things are great. Fantastic. But you have a younger audience. They want to hear stuff like that. Like, give them hell. Like,
it's a motivation.
Yeah, let's give them hell. Yeah, you're right. Let's give them hell.
It's a pep talk, motivational speech, not a dissertation on World War II.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, hey, I just got a text from one of our listeners who he's well known within this circle, and Luke, he's really interested in what he's saying because he's also an independent filmmaker and would love to hook up with you, and we could chat afterward. But the director of Walking Point just has been chiming in. Walking Point's an independent film that kind of brought Don and I together as a film project. I got kind of roped into, about 4 years ago now, 4.5 years ago, and was just thrilled to be a part of. Our listeners have probably heard the story before, but really, it's just an incredible story. I hope that you can check it out. Walking Point, free on YouTube now. But it's really the story of the war dogs in the Pacific during World War II. And
oh, nice.
Yeah, one of those kind of niche, that not overly talked about. And when I was brought on to kind of first really just be the military advisor and help with costume design, and then was offered a bit part to act, was really a lot of fun. And it's really led, the dominoes just really started. I owe a lot to RJ Nevins, the director of that film. So, would love to get the two of you guys to just to be able to chat. Like I said, he'd love to talk with you. Would love to have your feedback and going forward, because you give me some light. So I'll tell you that I am involved in another World War II independent film project that we're getting pretty close to production date. And again, I'm advising and acting about the Pathfinders in World War II. It's kind of a working title, Eureka Beacons, about those guys that deployed those Eurekas for those C-47s to kind of hone in on. Yeah, so you're familiar, and that's kind of like, that's not just the 101st Airborne, right? This is not just the Band of Wagon Brothers. This is, a little bit more of a specific thing. And I'll be honest, like at first I was like, do people care? Are people going to care about this? Are we going to put a lot of work into this? But just talking with the director last week, I think, like I said, we're getting close, and we got a lot of work to do, but hopefully we can produce something that, again, somebody will kind of fall in love with, and they say, okay, we want more, we're just going to shoot a short right now. But you've definitely given me hope. You give me hope for Walking Point moving forward. You give me hope for the Eureka Beacon project, because I mean, I'll be honest, like seeing some of these really well done films, maybe not necessarily flop from a financial standpoint, but just, it's just a different audience now. I mean, they don't, like you said, they don't know World War II like we do, right? We met a lot of these guys. We talked to them. They're not 186 years old like they seem to the younger generation. Like, these are real breathing guys that did some unbelievable thing. I mean, they really truly did have a rendezvous with destiny. And yeah, like I said, when you commit to a project, and you above all know how hard it is, and the work that goes into it, you definitely got to know your audience.
Let me give you some encouragement. And so definitely for all filmmakers, but definitely like the audience is there. There is money to be made. Not like a lot of money, but like, it is not if you embark on a World War II project to make a movie, it is not going to be, all right, now we're out all of our money and we'll never see anything. It is a genre that can be, break even, profitable. It can be that. So it is a great, if people are trying to figure out like, hey, do I really want to do this? Yes, do it. I mean, it's not a something you're just throwing your money away. There's an audience there. I'll also say this, like, I believe that whatever filmmaker is able to, I don't want to say figure out, but the first one to be able to pull off a $10 million feature will make oodles of cash, and will have a lot of big success, because they'll make as much money as Midway, but they'll have only spent $10 million. And that's what I want to encourage any of the your films, your projects that you're working on, even though they're lower budgets and they're building up, like, that's what you're trying to figure out. You're trying to figure out how to really hone in and make better your craft, and being able to tell a World War II type of story with limited resources. And then one day, when someone gives you the resources to do it, you're going to knock it out of the park. So that's what I definitely encourage everyone, especially that likes doing military stuff or World War II type of films. Like, don't be discouraged by anyone saying anything different. That is what the film business, it's what the industry is not seeing. It's what they don't get. They don't understand. But, you can't necessarily yet do a 90 million budget film and be profitable. It's got to be a $10 million, or so type of film. And it's going to come from someone that knows how to really maximize their resources on camera and be able to tell a great story. And it's going to be a World War II movie. I know it. Wow. I know it in my heart.
Wow.
Do you think there would be a beneficiary, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but my brother and I were joking on my other podcast about this new TV show about smoke jumpers and forestry firefighters. And I told him,
Fire Country.
I said, yeah, Fire Country. I said, I can't bring myself to watch it because one of my big pet peeves is bad CGI fire, and that's an entire show of CGI fire. And so what I was going to say is, when it comes to producing a film, World War II movie would be a good one, especially if it's just infantry and a handful of tanks and maybe some jeeps. Would it be beneficial to spend a little extra money on the live pyrotechnics versus the CGI? Because we see a lot of these lower production films that, they use the CGI for the explosions and all that. And it's noticeable. And it's not even just TV shows or even movies. I mean, we often joke around, like on the last season of Sons of Anarchy, they resulted to using CGI blood instead of squid packs, and you could tell. I mean, it's just those things are noticeable, and I didn't know if as a filmmaker you think maybe there is a benefit to spending a little extra money on the physical special effects opposed to the graphical special effects.
That's a great question. So let me answer the simple way. Yes, if you can do things practically, that's always better. But when you're on but I would say to actually pull off real practical effect explosions, you need to have $10 million plus.
Sure.
Because anything else that you're going to get, like even in mine, I thought I spent quite a bit of money on practical. I mean, we had practical throughout the whole thing. I still found myself having to enhance all of it with VFX. And kind of at the end of the day, it was kind of like, well, it almost had it. Not that everything looked more VFX, but it's like, well, if I still kind of look VFX and we use practical, like it's a bigger budget would have solved that problem easily. But that's what. So my point is okay, if you know like you're limited in what you're going to do, I would lean more towards the VFX because it helps things go quicker, and it's safer too. I mean, It's safer. It's safer.
Do you find that the actors give a better response to the physical effects opposed to, hey, make believe something just blew up over your right hand shoulder, opposed to holy shit, something just blew up over my right hand shoulder?
To be honest with you, like I think the actors do better when you tell them like to act and to like things that are going around because they love. I mean, they like doing that, and then they can play with it and give you different things. But when you have something practical, like they need to know like where's that gonna go off? What's that gonna look like? Because it's like, are they near it? Like how far?
Sure,
they're in danger almost. You know what I mean? And which rightfully so they are. So. They have a little bit more of a sense of nervousness. Now, saying that, if you actually can have the time, it doesn't necessarily have to be a budget per se, but if you have the time to be able to do that, and the actor goes, okay, this is going to do this, and this, and then they can run the gauntlet of whatever that practical is, and they can react. They know when they're supposed to react instead of kind of being surprised. That is the ideal. That's the ideal situation.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense too, because if you're trying to deliver a line at a certain time and you're physically fighting off a pressure blast from a tank cannon, blank going off in a tank, round or whatever, it may be a little hard to deliver that line the way you want to when you're physically reacting to, compression coming off the right hand side of the stage. So.
Yeah, so it's just kind of but I totally get what you mean. Having practical is always better. So even if it's just like. If you're doing something, if you can have something be practical, try to at least do it.
Yeah.
If you can pull it off and do it, and I always say pick your battles. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some, but just don't be in the middle where it's like, oh, I don't know, what are we gonna do? No, don't do that. Decide what you're gonna do and go with it. It'll make your life a lot easier.
I've heard people say this in a lot of other industries, and I would imagine. Working on films at the level you do, the smaller productions, that finding people that are good at doing their thing, trusting them to do what they're doing so you can focus on other things is probably a key role to getting your projects done. And I would imagine after as many projects you've done, you probably have a core group of people that you keep going back to, right? Oh,
yeah. I mean, I've got a great crew that have a lot of them have been with me the whole way. They're great groups of guys. I mean, they really understand like what I'm trying to do. They get it, and they're on board with like, okay, this is where we're trying to go, and however they can help me to get there. They're all on board, and plus I always like to say like they're family to me, a lot of them, and so we're just there to kind of have fun, like regardless of what happens. Like if you're not enjoying what you're doing and making this stuff with. I don't want to say necessarily you have to do it with your friends, but if you're not having fun with the guys or the men or women that are there making it with you, like what's the point? I mean, you'll be able to tell on the camera if no one's having any fun.
Oh, absolutely. The chemistry's not there.
It looks terrible. Yeah.
And there's no way for people who's never experienced it to understand it. And I only experienced it, I did a little background work here and there, but on that level. I only experienced it for a day and a half, and that was working on just being on the set for Walking Point, and then seeing the wrap party and being around the actors and the crew during the wrap party and seeing how that, I was only there for 2 days, but as Jeff said, it was a 10, 12-day shoot. But seeing how
we put the party in wrap party.
And just to see how those 12 days affected the cast, the crew, and how it created a family, like you just said. And this is, obviously the crew's worked on other things, but the principal actors, this is their first time working with this group. And they all acted like a family. One of the actors reached out to me and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know, thanks for doing that podcast. I'm probably responsible for 20 of the listens." He said, I keep going back and listening to it because I had the luxury of interviewing them during their rap party. So I'd be, okay, now we're bringing on X, Y, and Z. And so while the rap party's going on in the background, I'm doing a podcast from the middle of the house they rented. And just to see people interact that way, it still touches me all these years later. Go ahead, Jeff.
Still laughing. All those old memories are coming back.
But it's amazing how that impacts people's lives, just being part of something for 12 days. Well,
I mean, like you said, so 12 days on set. I worked with RJ and his wonderful wife for maybe less than 6 months, right? That was 4 years ago. I went from my third kiddo was born to the week later I'm on set. For 7 days straight with them, and so again, that's 4 years ago, and I'm going down to the coast with them, for Memorial Day weekend. 4 years later, after working with them, and we haven't done anything since. So it's not like we're always doing something, right? I mean, so that tells you the bond that was made. We love them like family. So, and I think that was a strong point for Walking Point. The chemistry and like Luke said, we really got a lot of bang for our buck on that film, and we really stretched every resource and got the most out of it. And the beauty of that particular film to me is not so much, it was almost after the film. I mean, once it came out, it was great, right? We won a lot of cool awards and all that stuff, and the notoriety and all the new projects that got launched. But just that we can constantly go back to it, the things that have happened since. I wouldn't be on this podcast right now if it wasn't for Walking Point. I wouldn't be on What's the Scuttlebutt. So it's always exciting. And Luke, I think you hit it again, of course, spot on. Like, without that, what are we doing this for? Like, you think we're sitting here doing a podcast because it pays us money? It's hilarious.
I wish. I just want to break even at this point. So while you're out there, head over to patreon.com.
Yeah, good opportunity there, Don.
You like that?
But yeah, so back to the question, I can imagine you probably have a fine group of people that you've done all these projects with that you couldn't probably imagine working with anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I've got some amazing men and women that have been a part of what I've done. And I couldn't have done it without them. And I love them more than anything. And, part of the reason why, I enjoy working with them so much, and I keep going forward because I know if I'm able to get something going, I get to bring them back, and we get to go back at it again. And that's, to me, that's, people will be able to see like what we create, and obviously we're we doing the best job we can, but like, to me, that's half that's half the reason why I do this, is so I can get something going again, so I can bring back the team and we can work on it. And we all know it's not going to be, it's not going to pay us enough. We're going to be putting in a lot of long hours. It's going to be stressful, high, and like, we know all these things, but yet we wouldn't change that for the world, and we'll be back at it doing it again. And I love that. So what do they say? That's like chasing the dragon. Is that what they?
Sure.
I'm sure there's lots of sayings for that, but I wouldn't change that for the world. And I mean, those are, I always compare making a movie is like going to war, and while it's definitely, obviously being in combat and being in war or serving that's way more important than anything making a movie can be. But a movie has a lot of, movie production has a lot of the similar type of things. Sit around and wait, a lot of logistics, hot, sweaty, early hours. No one, and just a lot of things that we're all in the same boat putting up with that. And it really just brings people together and to bond in a certain way, much like a lot of our military does. So, but obviously not those guys that have way more kudos and way more responsibilities and way more than making a movie, but same type of mentality.
And the name of that movie is Come Out Fighting. It is available now. Luke, where can people find you on the social media world?
Oh, find me?
Yeah, if they want to track you down, find your projects.
Oh, man. I think like the easiest way to get a hold of me or to see what I'm up to is Instagram. I love social media, but I hate social media. Sure. I got 4 kids now, so they take up so much of my time, and I love obviously posting things, but man, I'm getting those 4 kids. They take up a lot of time. So yeah, Instagram, I'm usually posting something on there, what have you or whatnot. But yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for talking. I love talking. I mean, it's fun to actually get to talk. Usually when I do interviews, obviously it's for the filmmaking and for the movie, which is fantastic. I love. It's fun to do something that's a little bit more World War II themed in that discussion, because that's obviously, a genre that I love, and it's fun to kind of really get into the nitty-gritty details of that with kind of a historical background in speaking about it.
Well, you can call your own out when you want to, but we got about 20 minutes left. We're going to roll into another thing. You're more welcome to stick around with. We opened the show with a mail call where one of our listeners said that we cost them an inordinate amount of money with all the books we recommend, which is going to bring us right into the segment we like to call What You Reading. So I'm going to start with you, Jeff. Hey, Jeff, what you reading?
Well, Luke actually mentioned the First World War at the beginning of this episode, and I've kind of been hung up on that a little bit, and I always try to, you guys, I'm always preaching this. To really fully understand the Second World War, I think we have to have a little bit of a decent knowledge of that First World War. So I had finished the book that I was reading last episode, so now I am on They Fought for the Sky by Quentin Reynolds. This is the breathtaking story of the first men to fight in the air, the magnificent combat pilots of World War I. And just a few pages or a few chapters in, and I got to say, this is really well done. Quentin Reynolds, the author, was a world-famous war correspondent, so this guy really knows his stuff, really gives some great backstory, even predating the First World War, and just what how the airplanes were seen at the beginning of the war, not at all as weapons of war, but just these treacherous box kites that people were like, this is silly. What are we doing? This could, and then, oh, but they could be used for observation. And then, oh, all of a sudden some French guy puts a machine gun on board and the world has changed forever. So I'm in that. And part of my research project and my next summer project, Luke, I'm also a big scale model hobbyist. So yeah, I'm a big model airplane guy. So the Fokker DR1 is going to be my next, I don't know which one I want to do yet. So I'm into this reference book. And then the Von Richthofen and the Flying Circus is a book from 1958 that was part of my grandfather's very extensive book collection I'm lucky to have. So this is a really great deal. So I'm kind of in 3 books at once, but all basically on the same topic, basically the air war in World War I.
I don't think people give enough thought to that. I was talking last week, Henry and I were about the 17th Airborne, and the book I'm still reading, 4 Hours of Fury, but in 4 Hours of Fury, they go back to talking about the creation of the airborne and how there wasn't an airborne, there wasn't uniform standards. They get into all the little nitty gritties of the boots and all that. But back to your book, you're in World War I. Someone says, hey, we got this new invention called the airplane. Let's utilize this stuff. But once again, there's no precursor. There's no, they had to basically come up with their own policies, regulations, and that in and of itself, to be at wartime and say, okay, we got this thing, how can we utilize it in the most rudimentary form that it is? Because, 20, 30 short years later, we're in World War II, and the technology is far more superior than it was in World War I. But to have those rudimentary planes, canvas and sticks, trying to figure out the timing to keep the machine gun from blowing the prop out the front of the damn thing, it's crazy to think about.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, even on the back cover of this book, it says basically, their planes were tinder boxes. They fought without parachutes or safety belts. They accorded full honors of war to fallen enemies in an ancient and honorable tradition. But for all the romance, chivalry, and hectic gaiety of their brief glory, they fought without mercy. It's their story which lies behind Hiroshima, the London Blitz, and the age of missiles. They opened the doors to space, and it's absolutely true. So yeah, when anytime that there's such a big change like that, especially in military doctrine, there's going to be a lot of naysayers. There's going to be a lot of the what ifs, and then to try it, you have to try it at full combat speed. There's going to be trial and error. There's going to be casualties, and it's especially for the American public and how America wages war. You get to a point where when there's too many casualties, it's just like, nope, we're not going to support that anymore, kind of thing. So. To see just those guys had no idea of what they were doing at the time or how pivotal it was going to be, how impactful it was going to be on the 20th century. And I think about being up there behind an 80 horsepower motor that like my weed eater probably is stronger than now. And you're 10 to 12,000 feet above planet Earth. And the canvas is stretching like this, and the wind is whistling through all of this forest of piano line wires, and you're just propelling yourself through space, and then throw a Lewis machine gun on the front of this thing and try to take another man's life. It interests me. It's kind of like my love for the B-17 and the air war in Europe to like another little bit of a level of. I can't believe humans did this every day. This was their life.
It's funny you're talking about your lawnmower. Those of you who live in hilly areas like a Kentucky or Tennessee or the hill countries of Texas, you got that push mower on the wrong angle, and just enough the carburetor cuts out and the fuel's not getting there. Could you imagine those old rudimentary airplanes and the rudimentary level of the carburetor and how easily those things could have stalled out if you angled it just the wrong direction and then hoping it restarts back up? I mean, we're not talking full vacuum fuel, fuel pumps and fuel injection. It's gravity fed carburetors and fuel tanks.
Yeah.
And just
fuel,
strapped to some
spark,
canvas.
compression.
Yep. That's it. And one brave guy to go flip the prop around.
I'll do it.
What was the phrase they used to say? It used to be we're talking about cliche sayings or platitudes. There's something that they would used to say before they kick over
clear prop.
Yeah, clear or whatever it was. And
contact.
Contact, that's what it was.
Contact.
Flop, 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 flop. Hey, Henry, what you reading?
I am still in Volume 3 of Ian Toll's trilogy, Twilight of the Gods. Really enjoying that. It's very immersive, but as you know, my time for reading is a little bit restricted these days. So
sure.
It's taken longer than I wish it would.
Well, I'm still on 4 hours of fury because of all the insanity, all the fury that's been going on around here. And so I actually didn't even crack this book at all last week, but I'm hoping to get caught up. Hey, Luke, I know you've been busy probably writing more than you're reading, but what you been reading lately?
Well, actually, that's funny that you guys were talking about this. I'll pop it up right here. So I've been kind of it's kind of reading, but it's kind of a little more research. It's called The Marines in World War II, from Pearl Harbor to Tokyo Bay. And it just kind of goes over their, I'm using it more as like a pictorial guide. So I'm doing a little research on Marines for a project. And so I've been reading that book to kind of get a sense of what they would wear and what they would look like and how they would.
I know three guys that are.
I've been reading.
I know three guys who are pretty in tune with the uniform standards of the Marine Corps in World War II. So if you need any suggestions, I know three guys who can help you out.
The Marine Raiders, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The Marine Raiders, some of their first missions, it is a bear to try to figure out exactly what they might have worn. Mm-hmm. Not that you can't do it. It's just they did a lot of modifications and not necessarily. And it's kind of like in between where they're wearing the frog skins and like the HBTs. So it just kind of depends.
Where are you going to find a pair of green PF flyers?
That's a big difference for 1st or 2nd Raider Battalion too.
There's a difference between the 1st and 2nd Raider Battalion. Yeah, there's a difference. So That's what I'm trying to navigate a little bit around, trying to really like get a sense of what those guys would have been wearing. And it just that's what I like to do when I start writing a script is then like, okay, well, what would if these guys are wearing something crazy ridiculous that I'll never be able to get my hands on, I might just, well, let's scrap that. Not the first Raiders. Let's do something more about the second Raiders. That'd be easier to do.
You mean you don't want to have a wardrobe department dyeing a bunch of HBTs black?
I mean, it's totally doable, but you mentioned that, and I was like, okay, this is great. They dyed them black. I was doing some reading and be like, wait a minute, that might have been like their dress. Like it's not a combat thing. It might have been more of like they're like walking around. They did it for fun. So I don't know. It's always the research, right?
Yeah.
Because you think you're going to do it a certain way, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, they didn't wear them like that. So that's always fun.
Yeah, the Army had a group called the Merrill Marauders, and basically they were told they had to carry certain things in their pack and whatever weapon system they wanted. But when it came to their uniforms, they could pick and choose whether it was Marine Corps issued stuff, Army issued stuff, and so the Merrill Marauders, their uniforms were literally all over the place. They could take whatever they found comfortable because they'd drop in behind the lines in Burma and just spend months on time in the jungle. And so their command, once again, we don't exist. We're going to make our own rules. Let's find the gear, regardless of who it's issued to, that works best in this environment. And so when you're trying to study that and build an impression off of that, it's all down the road. It's pretty crazy. And my video cut out, but I'm still here. For some reason, my camera keeps cutting out. Can you guys still hear me?
Oh, we hear you. Man.
Yeah, we hear you good.
So that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this episode of the What's the Scuttlebutt. So luckily my camera dropped out at the end. As we said earlier, if you want to support the show, please head over to patreon.com or WTSPWWII-EP.com. Click on that Patreon link, sign up, subscribe. It's only $1 a month. And while you're at it, head over to youtube.com, look for Digital 410 Media, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can watch all of our live streams live every Monday. And for myself, Jeff, Henry, and Luke, we want to thank everybody for hanging out, and we will talk to you all next week.
This has been a Digital 410 production.